Support comes from the Arizona Inn, a four-diamond, family-owned historic resort hotel and restaurant on Elm Street near the U of A. Information is at arizonainn.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Nensel, Executive Editor of the Tucson Weekly and Tucson Local Media, and we're here to talk Zona politics. Joining me today is State Rep Kirsten Ankel, who's wrapping up her freshman term in the Arizona House of Representatives and seeking re-election this November. Rep Ankel, welcome to Zona Politics.
Thank you. Good to be here.
The Red for Ed movement, you were up there, big excitement about education up there this year.
It really was.
Were you surprised to see that much energy from the teachers?
I was. I'm not sure we really thought it was going to happen until it did. But on the other hand, in some ways, it's not surprising. You know, teachers in the state have been very poorly paid for years, and I think there was just frustration building up, especially as they saw the budget being put together, and you know they were being promised a 1% pay increase. So I think that just sort of flipped the switch, and wow, they came out, and it was really incredible to be there.
And speaking about flipping, the governor suddenly went from saying it's impossible to give them any more to I'll give you a 20% raise. Do you think that the lawmakers will actually follow through? Because this is a process that's supposed to take place over a couple of years.
Well, yes, there's many ifs that go along with this. And as you may know, that 20% was based on a section of basically classroom teachers. And then that money is actually being shifted to the districts, and it's up to the districts to distribute that as raises. And of course, that puts a lot of burden on those districts because it's not just teachers that need a raise in our schools. Not just classroom teachers, it's all the other educational support personnel, the librarians, the teaching specialists, the bus drivers. So as you know, that's been an issue with TOSD. They decided to give an across-the-board raise. So it's not going to turn out to be a 20% raise. So we have not fixed this problem in Arizona.
And what do you think of this initiative that the Red for Ed folks are passing petitions on to increase income taxes on Arizona's highest earners in order to provide more funding for education?
I support it. I think everybody's got to get skin in the game. And so far, we have been supporting our education system mainly through sales taxes. And who's paying the majority or who disproportionately affecting their income? It's been the poor. And what we need to do is we need to spread that out. And certainly what we're doing is kind of returning to earlier income levels, tax levels that we had here in Arizona in the 1990s by taxing those top earners at a slightly higher percentage and thereby generating, I think, $600 million a year, which we could really use in our schools.
You were not a supporter of Governor Ducey's school safety plan. And why do you think it fell short, and what were your concerns about it?
Well, you know, with a lot of things that we've seen in the legislature, they're just really incredible missed opportunities. So it had a few good things in it, but it kind of missed the mark. We really need to be dealing with, you know, how are folks getting these guns into their hands? So as a Democratic caucus, we were supporting universal background checks. We thought that that should be part of any kind of a proposal to keep our kids safe from gun violence. We also were looking at banning bump stocks and also maybe looking at an age limit on the sale of semi-automatics and automatic rifles. So I think that was one big thing, is that there was nothing in there to deal with the ability to get a gun at a private gun sale. There's no background check. You could have somebody who is a domestic abuser, who's a felon, who can still get a gun if they get it at a private sale. So we felt that without addressing that fundamental issue of the availability of guns to dangerous people, that you really didn't have a real proposal on the table. The protective orders, I did support that. I thought that was actually a good thing. It was actually really the Republican caucus that had problems with that. So it was kind of a half-baked plan. I think I wish the governor had reached out to the Democrats. I think we would have supported it if it had some of those things in it that we were looking for to reduce the availability of guns in the hands of dangerous people. But he decided not to go that route.
And you've said you want to focus on criminal justice issues. And why are you focused on that? And did you make much headway this session?
We did make some headway, and I'm optimistic that we'll make some more headway in the future. So Arizona has the 4th highest incarceration rate in the nation. And we also have way above average recidivism rates. So right now, not only is this harming our communities, our families, but also it's taken a big chunk out of our budget. So over 10% of Arizona's budget is going to the Department of Corrections. And you've probably seen some of the figures, what does it cost to house somebody in our prisons? Something like $24,000 a year. And we're only spending, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year to educate a child. So I think we've got our priorities out of whack. There's a lot of nonviolent offenders that are serving sentences in our prisons, and that's many of them for drug possession or small dealing of drugs to support maybe an addictive habit. And prison is just not the best place for them, and it's very expensive. There's no treatment in our prisons for drug treatment, no mental health treatment. So what we're doing is we're spending an awful lot of money to incarcerate people, and we're not helping them. We've got to come up with new solutions.
And what would you, and we've got about a minute left, but what would some of those new solutions be from your perspective?
Well, we're looking at recategorizing some drug possession from a felony to a misdemeanor, and looking maybe at sort of maximum amounts of drugs that would be a misdemeanor. We're also looking at removing the stigma of having a felony conviction for folks, so it's easier for them to get a job, to get housing. So basically looking at for nonviolent offenders, how we can maybe set aside and maybe even expunge their record. And then we're also looking at truth in sentencing. Arizona is one of only 2 states that requires felons to serve 85% of their sentence. We are way outside the national norm on that. We abolished parole. So we have a lot of people spending a long time in prison. So we'll be looking at that.
Are you seeing much support from your Republican colleagues on this issue?
Well, that's what's really interesting. It truly is a bipartisan issue. There's a lot of support in the Republican caucus on this.
Well, best of luck with you next year, should you win your re-election effort, and best of luck to you in that. And we will be right back with Jim Love, who's running for the Arizona House of Representatives in District 9.
Zona Politics is made possible with the generous support of the Loft Cinema, Tucson's independent movie theater. The Loft features independent, foreign, and documentary films, cult classics, discussions with filmmakers, and much more, including the Loft Film Fest in November. The Loft is located at 3233 East Speedway Boulevard. Showtimes can be found at loftcinema.org.
My next guest is Jim Love, a member of the Flowing Wells School District Board, who is now seeking a seat in the Arizona Senate in Legislative District 9, which includes Tucson's North Side, the Catalina Foothills, and the Casas Adobes area. Jim, welcome to Zona Politics.
Thank you, Jim.
So you've been on the Flowing Wells School Board for 18 years now. You've seen the impact of state budget cuts to the school system. Were you surprised when the Red for Ed movement really erupted this last year at the legislature?
No, I wasn't. For the last 8 years, our teachers, we have what's called meet and confer. Our teachers, they see the numbers on our books. We don't really hide anything from our teachers. And they see the dwindling funds coming in from the state. And they know that our chief financial officer and our superintendent spend weekends before it's time to renew contracts. And they're having to decide, are we going to get more computers, more books, or are we going to at least give the teachers some kind of a raise? They watch this go on just like the school board does every year. And it just kept boiling over and over and over. And over the years, we noticed that the teachers were getting more and more vocal about it. And this year, they started getting really vocal about it. And I was talking to a lot of their leadership, and I was saying, something's got to be done. And I'm trying, because I've been going up for 5 years, trying to find ways to not so much ask for an increase in our total budget, but to find ways to fund programs like the special needs kids that I've put a study bill through and got it approved, for it to die of lack of funding, because I understood the governor didn't want those facts to come out. But I was figuring if we could at least get more funding for those special needs kids and quit pulling money from the regular classroom to fund that classrooms, then we could at least put some of that money back into the budget and help give our teachers a bigger pay raise. And then the big insult came, and this is what I think caused the little volcano to erupt, was when they were told they were going to get the 1% raise. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then when they finally hit 50,000 along Washington Boulevard, they didn't really get a 10% raise this year, because 1% of that came from that 1% that he talked about before. So they really, in reality, only got a 9% raise. So it wasn't a full one. They're not done with this yet. They're not going to let this die. So the big question in the really end of this product over the whole year that you're looking at, the whole big question is, why did it take 50,000 teachers in red shirts walking down Washington Boulevard to have to get a pay raise when they're some of the lowest paid teachers in the United States? Why couldn't, you mean to keep going?
No, I was going to ask you, do you feel confident that the lawmakers will actually follow through with the other 10% that they promised to the teachers?
I think they're going to have a hard time with that, because they've given some of that money away with the ESAs, and which I'm totally against. And they've given that money to that. This money has to come from somewhere. And it's like when they took the money away from us. I sit on the Arizona School Boards Association Board of Directors, and I had to vote if we were going to accept the governor's final proposal. Remember the Proposition 123?
Right.
I was one of the people that had to vote to end the lawsuit to accept those funds coming out of our state trust lands money. Well, the thing of it is we had no other choice. We had to get money into the schools. We had to get money into the schools now. And that was part of it that we could get. And so that helped us relieve some of the pressure and some of the tension that we had.
You mentioned the Empowerment Scholarship Accounts, the ESAs. That's
right.
Vouchers by another name.
Right.
I think a lot of people view it that way.
It's a voucher. Yeah.
And so why does it give you heartburn?
Here's why it gives me heartburn. Let's say that I gave you $15,000. And I said, okay, Jim, you can go buy this Toyota if you want to. You know, it's a Corolla, it's on sale for $15,000, and you can go buy that. And you say, no, I would rather have a Cadillac. And I say to you, I'm going to give you $15,000 and let you buy a Toyota Corolla, or a Ford product, or a Chevy product. But you're only going to get $15,000 to buy one of those products. You can't have a Cadillac. And you said, well, I still want the Cadillac. And I say, okay, if you pay for the Cadillac yourself, you can have it. So the people have a choice of having a free public district school education. And we're a very fine school district. And there are a lot of fine, good school districts out there. But if they choose that they want to have a religious organization having a school to teach their kids, that's fine. I have absolutely nothing against that. But they've made the choice to do that, and so therefore they need to pay for that. And I'm against having money from the state go to these parents, and that's how they finally got around the loophole on that court ruling, that they can save that money for their kids' college education.
And in terms of the school safety plan that Governor Ducey rolled out, your thoughts on that obviously didn't pass. What should the legislature do in terms of helping keep schools safer?
Well, number one, we're going to have to start looking at the gun issues. What he tried to roll out on that is ridiculous. First of all, if you're going to have gun laws that says that you have to have background checks, that should be done everywhere. That should be, if you're going to have them in the state of Arizona, that means that when you have a gun show, everybody there has to register. If you have a gun sold in New Mexico and it comes across the border of Arizona, it should have to have a gun. It should have to have a background check. There's no sense having background checks on some guns sold from some stores, but not from others. There's no sense having Joe Black over here buy a gun and then just give it to this guy over here because this guy over here can't pass a background check. What's the reason for even having a background check? So I think anybody receiving a weapon, a firearm, needs to have a background check.
And in terms of the texting and driving, texting and driving, you think the state needs a law?
I do.
Because?
We're all just as guilty at that and you and I both know it's unsafe. I want you to try to go down a highway when nobody's around you and see if you can stay on the highway while you're texting.
It ain't easy.
It's not easy. No, it is not. No, and it's unsafe.
I'm trying to stop. I swear to God. I'm working on it.
It has to stop. It has to stop.
All right. That is all the time we have today, but I appreciate you coming down and talking to us about some of the education issues facing the state. And we will be right back with our next guest, Andres Cano, another candidate for the Arizona House of Representatives.
Support for Zona Politics is provided by Hotel Congress in historic downtown Tucson. More information at hotelcongress.com and 622-8848. The Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce serves the business community in the bilingual, bicultural region of the Arizona-Sonora border and is a proud media partner with Zona Politics. Learn more at TucsonHispanicChamber.org.
My next guest is Andres Cano, who is running for the Arizona House of Representatives in Legislative District 3, which includes downtown and west side Tucson. Andres, welcome to Zona Politics.
Thanks so much for having me, Jim.
So we've been talking with the other candidates here about education. I want to get your thoughts on it. The 20 by 2020 plan that Governor Ducey announced in the face of the Red for Ed movement, promising raises to teachers, 20% raises by 2020. Do you think teachers can rely on that promise?
Absolutely not. And I'm inspired by the Red for Ed movement. I'm running for the State House because public education made my life story happen. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I want that same opportunity to be available for everyone. And I had great teachers, great schools, but I know that they did it really on their own backs because we've continued to defund our public schools, $4.5 billion since 2007. I think the Red for Ed movement is a piecemeal election year strategy to solve this solution. That's why I'm supporting the Invest for Ed proposition and really look forward to this being the core issue in my candidacy.
And earlier this year, the lawmakers did extend the 0.6 cent sales tax rather than having to take it back to the ballot sometime in the next couple of years before it expires. Do you think that was a good move by lawmakers to go ahead and extend that tax?
Well, absolutely not. I think what this legislature needs to start talking about, and I look forward to having this conversation when I'm elected by the voters in District 3, is looking at all of our state's revenue, because right now we give more money away to corporations and to those at the very top. And so we're left as Arizonans with the discussion about what's in the bank account. And if we continue to give working families money away via these tax breaks and these tax cuts, we're not going to be able to have meaningful discussion about investing in education, in our workforce, and ultimately in our infrastructure.
So too much reliance on the sales tax, not enough on the income tax in the state?
Well, I mean, it goes from sales tax to income tax. I mean, gasoline tax, if we want to talk about infrastructure, has not been increased since 1990. To put that into perspective, I wasn't born yet. And so this legislature just has to get serious about revenue, and it needs to come from a lot more sources than what we currently have.
What about these empowerment scholarship accounts? We talked a little bit about these with the previous guest, but they're basically the vouchers that allow parents to send their kids to private and religious schools with taxpayer dollars, and it got expanded last year. Now there's a ballot proposition that would reverse that and keep it from becoming law. Your thoughts on these empowerment scholarship accounts?
I think they're absolutely bad for Arizona. I mean, here we are talking about public education and needing to meaningfully restore the cuts that we've made since 2007. And ESAs are just another attempt to take public dollars into profit-seeking private organizations. And so I'm not about that proposal proposal at all, and I look forward to being an advocate for public education when I'm elected to the legislature.
What did you think of Governor Ducey's school safety plan? It seems like the Republicans and Democrats found things to dislike. It didn't go anywhere. Your thoughts on both that plan and what needs to be done to secure schools?
You know, I'm young, and I'm part of that generation that's standing up to any elected official that doesn't stand behind meaningful, comprehensive background checks. And I think that is one of the faults of this governor for not addressing that in this proposal. The gun show loophole needs to be addressed. That was not. And ultimately, I mean, we are talking about gun violence and needing to address it as a public health issue. You know, this is not a Second Amendment issue. This is about making sure that our children, that our teachers, our educators, anyone who enters our public schools are protected. And so, you know, there's still more work to come in the next legislature on this very issue.
What about those who say, well, we should just fortify our schools like we do our airports, and kids can go through metal detectors each morning?
Well, you know, I have lots of teachers in my family. I was raised by strong teachers. They're the ones that gave me hope, and they disagree with that assessment.
Arming teachers, letting them carry a gun in the classroom?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's, you would support arming teachers?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You're not for the arming teachers, okay. Do you think, you mentioned infrastructure earlier,
Yeah.
Do you think we do need to raise the gas tax to help pay for highways? There's a audit, I think, that showed we were short about $62 billion in our transportation needs between now and 2035. Gas tax going to solve that, or is there a better way of raising money for the highways and the infrastructure?
Absolutely. I've worked for the county for the last 6 years of my life, and I've seen firsthand the need for us to invest in our roads and our infrastructure. I think the gas tax is one solution. What we have is a legislature that continues to pass budgets on the backs of local jurisdictions like the City of Tucson and like the Pima County Board of Supervisors. I've been endorsed by the 3 Democratic members, the entire City Council, in this candidacy to get to the State House. And I think they're doing it because they're looking for Southern Arizonans to fight on behalf of our economy. The U of A, the West Side, the downtown region are in my district, and so we need to get serious about bringing jobs to the area and investing in what's going to make Southern Arizona the special place that it already is, but can be even better.
Pima College no longer gets funding from the state of Arizona. Should that be restored?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a travesty that Pima and Maricopa have, community colleges have zero support from the state now, and so that's one of my platforms, and I think we have Republicans that are ready to get working on that because they realize that we don't have an educated workforce as a result of that cut. And, you know, very quickly what I'll say is this is an example of the legislature punishing community colleges for standing behind our dreamers, and that was really ultimately the direct result of this, was trying to punish our community colleges for doing the right and humane thing.
The city lawmakers have passed a variety of anti-abortion bills in recent years, and many of them have been struck down as unconstitutional by the courts. Would you have voted for any of those? Any of the anti-abortion bills?
Absolutely not. I am a pro-choice Catholic. I am endorsed by Planned Parenthood in this journey, and folks in my district absolutely support a woman's right to make decisions about her own health care and to make sure that those conversations stay between her and her doctor. I think, you know, what we ought to be talking about in the legislature is comprehensive sex ed and providing really accurate evidence-based curriculum, sex ed curriculum, that will make it so that our younger folks and our women and our children are more educated on those fronts.
How about texting and driving? Is it time for a state law to prohibit texting and driving?
Absolutely. I think what we need is to make sure that we are held accountable and that we're paying attention to our public safety.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. Andres
Thank you so
Cano,
much.
candidate for the Arizona legislature in District 3. Thank you for coming by Zona Politics. And that is our show for today. I'd like to thank all our guests for visiting us with us today, as well as our media partners, the Tucson Weekly, Tucson Local Media, Inside Tucson Business, Creative Tucson, and KXCI 91.3 FM, where you can hear a version of Zona Politics on Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
All of these young people from the community come together, actually like get up and do something.
We can do anything! I think we've attracted like a lot of people that are like super passionate.
We're here at the No Ban, No Wall protest.
If you come out of college, you have this experience, you know how things run, you have a huge leg up.
People who have ideas and who are dreamers, you know what I mean, who really want to get themselves out there. I think that they should come here.
Zona Politics is hosted by Tucson Weekly senior writer Jim Ninsel. The program is produced by Jennifer Powers Murphy and Danny Vinnick and edited by Jim Rundle. Special thanks to KXCI, Tucson Weekly, Brink Creative Digital, and all supporters who provide crucial funding for the program. Learn more about Zona Politics at zonapolitics.com and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter